Hey y'all, happy Friday, and thanks for joining me today on Fridays with Flora. And today we are going to talk buttermilk because I have a really great recipe to share with you, and we explored buttermilk for the month. Because here in the Midwest, if you're going to make anything with buttermilk and you buy buttermilk, you are committing to buttermilk. Because buttermilk in the Midwest, you can only buy in like half gallons. So if you use up your cup or your 3/4 cup that you need, you're still stuck with a lot of buttermilk. And what are you going to make with that buttermilk? My husband was like, make something with this buttermilk. And I said to myself, make what with buttermilk? We're healthy eating. It's our New Year's resolution. We can't make cakes, we can't make pies, we can't make cookies. So I explored bread this month. And I've got some really great recipes and great bread tricks and tips for you this month. So today it's about oats and honey and wheat in a wonderful, luscious little sandwich bread. And it uses a good, I'm going to say 3/4 cup of buttermilk. It's not going to get you through that whole half gallon, but it'll put a dent in it. And you know what? You can always double it and get 2 loaves and freeze one. Because you are a domestic diva. Male or female, doesn't matter. You can be a domestic diva, gender neutral, doesn't matter. So anyway, join me today in the kitchen. We're going to make some amazing bread. And then join me again in a couple weeks, and I'm going to show you how to make a whole wheat, no knead buttermilk loaf. It's really rustic, and you don't need to go all full grain with it. You can mix up your flours to bring it a little lighter, but it's super fun. You just need a couple days, so it's a kind of a weekend project, but it's just time. It's not a lot of effort. But anyway, we won't talk about that till the next video. So anyway, let's have some fun in the kitchen. We need some joy. And you know what? I know we're all eating healthy, but we can enjoy carbs. It gives us joy, right? We need some joy. Anyway, come to the kitchen with me and let's have some fun. First things first, we got to get our yeast proofed. This is about a 1/4 cup of warm water. When I say warm, I'm talking about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And to this, we're going to sprinkle in some dried active yeast. A tablespoon. We're going to give it a pinch of sugar. Give it a quick stir and let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. What we're doing is that sugar's feeding the yeast. The warm water's activating that yeast, and once we see bubbles, that's the yeast kind of coming alive and eating that sugar and producing gas bubbles. And that's how you know it's ready to be used. I wanted to add some grain to this bread to just kind of take down the glycemic index of the bread for my husband, who we need to watch sugar for. So I've got here some quick oats, which the quick oats have been processed more than like a rolled oat. You can see that it's rolled, steamed, then cut up so that they cook quickly in the microwave. So I like this for bread, but for this bread, I want to process it just a little bit more to get more of a kind of a rustic flour texture to it. So I'm going to put it in the food processor and pulse it a little bit. If you have old-fashioned or just rolled oats, you can still use it. You just need to pulse it down a little bit more. Adding oat is going to add some fiber to the bread, so it's going to get a little bit more of a rustic kind of flavor, but the fiber helps your body kind of absorb sugar slower. This is about a cup's worth that I processed down, so I'm hoping with the processing it gets reduced down to 3/4 of a cup, which is what I'm aiming for. 3/4 of a cup of processed oats. I've melted 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to cool it off a bit, but before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of honey to this so that it gets nice and combined and easy to add. So like I mentioned, we're going to predominantly be working with the kneading hook on your KitchenAid. If you don't have a KitchenAid and a kneading hook, you can certainly be kneading by hand. And if you're not familiar with kneading and the kneading process by hand, check out my bread making video And I think also I go into it in my ramp bread as well. So the yeast, take a look at this. Ooh, is that poofy? And that's what you're looking for. Poof. Those yeasties are eating. So we're going to put this in here. And this is going to be our mixing bowl for the KitchenAid where we're going to make our bread. To this we're going to add that butter and honey mixture. It's been cooled. You don't want it totally cold, but you don't want it hot either because that'll affect the yeast. You don't want it too hot, so I'm going to take the heat off. And then we're going to add our 1 1/4 cups of buttermilk. And I've had this sitting out at room temp for like about, I don't know, a couple hours. It takes to chill out. I'm going to add that in. All right, so we've added that buttermilk in. And just kind of roughly mix it with that honey and the butter and the yeast. And yeah, it's going to start bubbling again, but that's okay. So now we're going to add it to our stand mixer. All right, we're at our stand mixer and add our kneading hook. We're going to start with 2 cups of regular flour. Here's a teaspoon of salt. If you use unsalted butter, we used salted, but if you use unsalted butter, you need to up your salt a little bit more by maybe like 1 1/2 teaspoons. So 2 cups of flour is only partial what we need here, but it's just enough to get things going. And just start mixing it up till it's incorporated. You can help it along by scraping the sides. Okay, most of that's incorporated. Now we're going to add our oat, and that's 3/4 cup of pulsed oats. And 1 more cup of flour. So for those of you that are paying attention, it's 3 cups of all-purpose flour and then 3/4 cup of that pulsed oat. If you want to skip the oat, you can just replace it with 3/4 cup of flour. You can also mix your flours up. You know, you could do half bread flour. It's going to give you a toothier kind of bread. This is a sandwich bread, so I'm keeping it nice and light. But you can certainly play with your flours. I always say that in all my bread videos. Okay, now we're going to let the kneading hook do a lot of work. Keep it on medium-low and just let this baby run for about 8 minutes. What that means for you out there that are doing this by hand, it's a lot of kneading, about 8 minutes of kneading. So it's going to be a good arm workout. But we're going to be lazy and do the kneading hook. I'm going to pause this after about 1.5 minutes and let you see that it's already come together and it's pulled from the sides. There's still a little bit of flour left, but it's also very, very sticky. So what that 8 minutes is going to do is really get the gluten proteins stretched and worked out. We're looking for no stickiness and pretty much a clean bowl. It's going to kind of grab all of that on the sides eventually. So let it go. Midway through, I'm taking it off the hook, stretching it on the bottom and starting over. As you can see, so it's been 8 minutes, and I mean, the bowl is spotless. And it's pulled away. It's not sticky. I mean, there's like a sticky tack to it, but it's not like super sticky. A bowl with nonstick cooking spray. You could also brush oil. You want this dough to stick. Shape it into a ball of dough. Place it at the bottom. We're going to cover it with plastic wrap and a lint-free towel and let it sit for about 1.5 to 2 hours. We want this to double. All right, let's look at our dough. Whoa! It's not quite 2 hours. It's more like it's an hour and 40, an hour 45. So, and it's already over doubled. So this is great. Actually, I'm gonna keep this plastic wrap because we need to do a second rise in the actual pan. So punch this down like so. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna shape it into a rough rectangle. And I've got a 3x9 baking pan, and I've sprayed it with cooking spray, and I'm going to set it in there. Going to recover it with plastic wrap and that lint-free towel. Set it back in that warm corner. And now I'm just going to give it a second rise for about 40 minutes. Okay, so that's been 40 minutes. You can see it's risen again. I like scoring my bread. Use a sharp knife. This helps the bread have room to do that last rise in the oven. Then I also like to do a water finish because I like crusty bread, and water helps a crustier crust. The water also will help any garnish you want to put on, and I wanted to put some extra oats. Now we're going to bake this at a 350 oven for about 30 minutes or so. Okay, this took about 40 minutes. Nice and golden, crispy top. I'm going to let it sit in the pan, kind of settle and finish baking in the pan. Then we'll pull it out of the pan and cool it off on a cooling rack, and then we can cut into it. All right, y'all. Is that not delicious? I mean, look at that crumb. So it's a really nice, moist, it's still warm. Yeah, this is the piece. This is the piece I cut and put some butter on it. My husband and I cut into it already. So, yeah, I know I was supposed to start a diet. Now this low carb thing, kind of a Whole30 thing for New Year's, but we had buttermilk to use. What can I say? Well, if there's any consolation, the oat grain will help put a little bit of fiber and health into this. Happy New Year, guys. And use up your buttermilk by making bread. Anyway, happy 2021. Thanks for visiting, and please subscribe below. We have lots of fun things happening. The content calendar is full for Q1. So anyway, I'm gonna munch on my bread. Hopefully you're hitting that button, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Stay healthy, my friends. Bye.